Today, we're aiming to cover a little bit about the Refugee Fellowship Program at Refugees International, give some tips, go through the application and give some tips on how to prepare a strong application, and also say a little bit about what we look at when we choose the fellows, because we usually receive a big number of applicants. But starting with the first thing is, what is Refugees International, or who is Refugees International? We are an advocacy organization based in DC. We focus on advocating for the rights of displaced people all over the world. We cover different regions from South America to North America, Africa, Middle East, Europe. However, that doesn't mean we work in every single country in these regions. We have specific countries we focus on in these regions. For example, when we're talking about South America, maybe Costa Rica, Mexico, Brazil. If we're talking about Africa, Kenya, maybe DRC, Mozambique at certain times. So that's also important to understand that we are not actually located in these countries. We are located in DC, but usually our team travel to these countries to do the research on the situation or the crisis of displacement, or partner with organizations there on the ground to do the work. However, we are only advocacy organization. We are not a service delivery. What does that mean? We do advocacy work. That means we advocate or try to advance the cause of displaced people in the US and overseas, but we don't have programs that deliver direct services for refugees, for example, health-related programs or education, or any kind of programs that provide direct services. And it is very important for you to understand that, because what you are expecting from the fellowship or from RI should fit within what RI does. And it's so important to start distinguishing between advocating and pushing for policies, laws, and advancing the situation of refugees, and versus if we are offering actual services or direct products for refugees, which we don't. Now, after we know now about what is RI or what is Refugees International, it is important also to learn a little bit about the history of the fellowship, how it started, and why we started it. This fellowship started back in 2023. So now we have 2 cohorts already. The second cohort is about to graduate, and we are recruiting for the third one, the one that you are interested in applying for. We started this fellowship because at RI, we are committed to the power shifting agenda. What does that mean? We believe that those closer to the crisis or those closer to displacement should be at the driver's seat when we are talking about solutions, should be empowered, should be supported to be able to actually advance their advocacy work or their impact. So that's why we decided, or that was like the decision back actually it started a few years ago, when we thought that we cannot keep doing things as we are doing it, by our team going on the ground and doing the work, more than we have to partner with the organization on the ground. We have to partner with leaders in the local communities to be able to do the work better. And this is where the idea started of we have to create our fellows program where we support refugee leaders who are already in their community doing the work. And this is the most important thing about the fellowship, that we think of it as a partnership. It's like a partnership for a year between RI and the refugee leader or the refugee representative in their country on a specific advocacy item that we try to support them in advancing their advocacy agenda, but they have to already be doing some sort of advocacy for sure. What does the fellowship offer? The fellowship offer the 15,000 stipend, as you can see in the description, but this is not all of it. This is not why the fellowship haven't started. The financial side is really important, but we have designed the fellowship around the 3 main pillars. The first one is preparedness. What does that mean? Under preparedness pillar, we have the training. We offer some trainings. This cohort had around 14 sessions of training around different topics that was identified by them. for sure, it's around advocacy, how public speaking, writing for advocacy, how to create an advocacy strategy, and how to write an advocacy publication. Is it op-ed? Is it statement? All different type of publication that we learn about during the training. So this is one part of the fellowship. The other part is access. And by access, we mean how could we ensure that our fellows or the refugee leaders have access to certain policy-making venues where they usually are excluded. And we know that refugee voices have been excluded from main policy venues worldwide and underfunded, and their work is underfunded. So how could we make sure that they are connected? We try and connect, where we use our access that we have sometimes in some countries with some government. Is it US government? Is it different government? And try and connect those leaders with some policymakers who are trying to push them, or they're trying to advocate with this policy makers for certain change for their community. We try to connect them with some policymaking venues or global platforms such as Global Refugee Forum or UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. And also, like, there's different event that happens in Geneva, for example, United Nations consultations or UNHCR consultations with nonprofits. That's also very much related to the travel restrictions of the person, because we all know displaced people from different background could face different restrictions to travel, but when they can't travel, we make sure that they get there. And the third pillar of the fellowship is networking and resourcing. Again, we know that refugee-led work is very underfunded, and we try to connect them with different resources of funding, but that also doesn't mean that at RI we can actually offer the funding for the organization or for the work more than the 15K for the personal use. But we try to connect them with different donors, hoping that this connection would lead somewhere. So this is the fellowship summary, or what is the fellowship is about. And I know one of the main questions that were received online was, what is the criteria and who can apply? Who can apply? First and foremost, you have to be from displaced background. You have to have experience forcibly displaced, a situation where you are either asylum seeker in a country, you are a refugee in a country, or you are an IDP, which is internally displaced people. So you can be in the same country, but you have been displaced. If you have not experienced forcibly displacement, you don't qualify. Or if you work for refugees or advocate for refugees, which is a huge thing to be doing, but you are not from forcibly displaced background, you cannot apply. You have to be already doing some work on the ground. You have to be already doing advocacy work for a few years, so you know what advocacy is. And this is also a very important thing that we come across during the application, that like your understanding of what advocacy is we should see it through the application. And it is important that you actually know what advocacy what advocacy is. You don't have to have a specific degree, because I saw also this is the question. We don't have to have a specific degree or years of experience, but for sure, when it comes to age, I mean, at least, I'm not gonna specify a number, but you have to be maybe an adult, like 18 applies to be able to, because you need to have this like few years of experience, and by that age, I think you might be able to have a few years of experience, but by 18, but at the same time, if you have a 15 plus years of experience, so we can say you are a seasoned leader, we prioritize those emerging leaders who have been working for a few years, maybe 5 years or a little bit more, but not like 15 plus years. We think maybe those who are well-established leaders, and we think about them as actually role models for our fellows, which we can connect them with and mentor with. And we try to have to lean toward or prioritize leaders who are within their first or mid term of their professional journey, not like who have already advanced in their professional journey. During the fellowship, you get connected with one of our advocates based on the region or based on the theme that you have that is common between the fellows and the advocate, and you work, and kind, as I said before, it's kind of a partnership with a year where you set priorities and advance your work plan during that. Another question we received is it virtual? Is it in person? Do I have to come to the US? You don't have to come to the US. This is open for everyone, all nationalities, and you can do it from wherever you are. It's virtual, but you need for sure to have access to internet. It's very important to have access to internet to be able to do it. We have received a question about, do you need a bank account? In the US, you don't need a bank account in the US. You need a bank account registered wherever you are to be able to receive the stipend. It doesn't have to be a US based. This is about I tried to cover all the questions that were received during about what is the criteria for the fellowship. And if you have more questions, please place it in the chat. But for now, I would like to show a short video about one of our fellows, current fellows, Lucky Kareem, which have been very inspiring to work with her in the last year. And I wanted also to share this short video and story with you before we continue. I think we're having some tech issues because there's no sound. Okay, we will postpone the video for now, as I see that the sound is not working, but we can come to it later when the technical details are sorted. Now we can go a little bit over the application itself. How can you start an application? I will share my screen and show you the first step to start an application, then we can go through the steps. But let me share my screen here and show you how it looks like. This is the first thing you will see when you click add the link. For sure, you click here more, and then here you can read all the details. It's actually what I'm talking about. It's also important to say that it is a 1-year fellowship, and this cohort is bound to start on August 1st until July 2026. So you read across what the description, and then to apply, you go here. You can click apply, then register, or you can do click at the register button. And here you put your first name for sure, last name, email, and you create the password that works for you. After you do that, like you fill your name, last name, your email, and you create the password, then you can log in and start your application. What does it look like when you actually create the account and you log in? It will look like this. This is where you should be after you log in. Here, there's the different steps that you have to go through to apply. And the first thing is the form. It's easy thing. This one is easy. You just fill in quickly, but be careful. Here, if you have personally experienced displacement, you choose it. If not, don't continue the application. But I have seen some people have put no, they filled the application and they said maybe they advocate for refugees, but they don't have the experience. So just to save yourself time, energy, if you have not experienced forcibly displacement, I would save your time, not to go through the rest. You can be asylum seeker, you can be forcibly displaced, like different statuses, right? Here, you can choose the status, or even maybe you have been a refugee, but not now you get a citizenship somewhere, you can also qualify, and you are working for refugees, you still qualify for it. One of the most important thing that I would like you to pay attention for is here, because I have reviewed some applications so far. When it comes to which of the following themes does your advocacy focus on? You don't have to choose two. You have to choose up to two. If you don't work on any of that, don't choose one. Just choose like labor market access, and then you go ahead and the essays and talk about education, or all your work is about education, but you choose labor market access, or you choose women and girls. Why I'm saying that? What you see here is actually the themes that we work on, the themes or that we have expertise on. So we need to be able to work with you. So these are the themes that we work on. So if you choose one of them, and then all your application would be talking about something that we don't do, actually, it would be hard to work with you. So if your work doesn't fit within any of the following and it is others, just put it as others. Don't put it as labor market access, but it will be totally different service delivery or totally different thing than what have you checked, because this make the review process even harder, because someone from labor market access have to review your application, then they end up reading about I don't know, health disaster somewhere, which is not related to their expertise. So please help us. If it is not one of these, put others and put what is your expertise, so we can try to connect you to the best person who can be able to work with you. And another thing that I have also have to make it clear here, after you fill all of that, when you fill the form, you go to the essay. The first essay, you have to talk about your professional experience or your personal and professional experience in advancing the rights and safety of displaced people. So here, where your story should come up of as a person who have experienced displacement and how this led to you working on advocating for refugees or displaced people. However, be careful not to use a ChatGPT, because you can use always AI to edit, I don't know, but you cannot use AI to write a personal statement, because we can tell 100%. So far, maybe all the personal statement looks the same from the people who are applying. Everyone had the same story so far, and it's so clear that we have not reviewed all the application, but there's a number of applications that we reviewed, and literally we can see that this was written by AI. And this is actually your time to write your personal story. This is your time to show how really forcibly displacement have impacted how you think around these issues and why you started getting engaged. It doesn't have to be perfect English, fully polished, that it is like an experienced English writer have wrote it for you to qualify. But for sure it have to be readable, and you need to be able to understand and talk English. But we can tell when the personal statement have been written by AI. And the second essay, you have to write about how this fellowship would help you in advancing your fellowship, your leadership journey or your advocacy journey. And here, the key point is actually that we can see that you know what RI does, right? So if you know what RI does and you have done your homework and read about our work and our website, you know how we can help you advance. Because if you write here something about networking is good for sure, or connecting with like-minded people, which is a bit generic. It is sure we can write this, but also we want specifics, because that would show if you have really know what RI does and how could it help you advance your cause, how could RI connect you with certain, I don't know, policy making people, policy-making venues, how could RI be working on a certain theme that you are also working on, and there's the intersection, and you can point out how exactly how you see this is helping you. It will make your application stand out. Then it is just a general networking, that the fellowship would help you networking, meet like-minded people. As I said, it's important, and we sure consider it as one of the pillars of the fellowship as networking and resourcing, but there is other stuff also to think about and make your essay unique. Again, don't rely on ChatGPT to tell you. You think how it would. For sure, you know better. And then after you put in your essay, 400 words, you move to, you have to click as mark as complete after you finish it. But now, because I don't have anything here, but I will try to do it. Okay. and you go to the work plan. The work plan is a plan. It doesn't have to be long, but it should show how you are planning to use this 1-year fellowship to work with RI on a certain advocacy item. And here also, like the essays before, it shows if you really understand what advocacy is, right? Because in your essay before, you have written about your journey, you have written about, in the second essay, how are working with RI during the fellowship will advance your leadership and advocacy journey. When we're talking about that plan, this is actually shows how much you understand advocacy, because we have in some plans would be like, we're gonna open a school for X number of students, which is great, and must be done, but this is not what RI do. As I said at the beginning of the session, we do more advocacy. We work to advance the rights and of forcibly displaced people through different laws or pushing for policies, but we don't actually do direct service delivery. So if your plan is about opening a school or a hospital or offering X number of, I don't know, which like really important, and I feel bad of saying this, really important to do such a stuff, but we are not able to do it. So when you are writing your plan, you have to really go and dig deep into RI website, see what RI is about, where is some intersections of work regions or countries or themes where we really do this work. So when you're writing it, it will show that first you understand advocacy. Second, you'll be able also to write it in a more, not you want to offer direct service delivery because we cannot help you with that much. And the third one, also you have to be careful to be specific, right? If you are advocating advocacy targets, setting advocacy targets or advocacy goals should be specific. You want to, let's say, for example, advocate for refugees in Kenya to access labor market or to get their work permits in X settlements or in X cities, or you can say, let's say in Kenya. Be specific. You cannot say, I want to defend all human rights activists all over the world who are facing torture. Yes, we can always have ambitious advocacy target, but how could we actually measure this? And how could we really work toward it? So and it is just 1 year. So we have to really be realistic of being more specific, give your target, where and how you're gonna get there. So the working plan will show us if you really understand advocacy and did you specify what you want to do, and do you actually understand what art is about, right? By how you choose what you're gonna talk about. Okay, so be careful when working in the work plan, specific, you know what is advocacy, and you know what RI is about, to be able to choose something that we really, when we read it, we'll be like, yeah, this is what we are working on, or this is thing that we can actually work on. There might be a gap, but we know we have some sort of expertise that we can partner with this person. I'm gonna now go to the list of references. There is a very important thing here also to know. You don't have at this stage, you can see here that you have to fill the name, the organization, position, and email of 3 references. Keep in mind, you don't have at this stage to actually provide recommendation letters. It is not recommended. I saw some questions about when do we provide the recommendation letter, or can we submit before we have the recommendation? No, you just have to list their names, emails, and contact details, and we reach out to them when you get to the second level or the second level of the fellowship. So don't think now about, am I getting a recommendation letter? There is no time. You don't have to. Just to choose the 3 people. It is important also to choose the 3 people who are able to actually talk about your professional journey or your professional skills and your personality, right? So it's important to choose the right people, because in case you advance to the second stage, you want people who would be able actually to speak to what you have said in your application, because they are aware about your work and aware about your personality. So be careful when you're choosing your recommendation or your recommenders or your references. Again, you don't need recommendation letters at this stage. Again, and this is, I think, a very important question that we all the time hear. How do you select? I have applied before, I didn't get accepted. I have not heard back from you. It is our third year now doing this, and the amount of application we receive is overwhelming. We are talking about almost 1,000 application every year. So can you imagine when we're talking about 1,000 application and we have to choose 6 people? Believe me, the decision is super hard. That we, at the end of the stage, we look and see there is a lot of potential out there. There is a lot of leaders. We would be very devastated that we have to actually say no to some people, or that we cannot actually have everyone, or maybe the last 10 who are like, we think like this is top 10 and they all have to be in, but we have to take that hard decision of who's gonna be there just for resources purposes. But what we look at when we do the last selection, let's say we have already gone through the first thing, we have a first review set of the application where I talked about what we look in, you understand advocacy, you understand what RI is about, you're being realistic in what you ask. And then there's another committee that looks at your application after the first review, which are based on the country or the theme or the region and the theme. So that expert from that region, or that expert on that theme have to look at, expert 1 or 2 have to look at the application. And this is why it is important. When I said, if you choose labor market access, don't talk about education. Or if you choose one of the two on, I don't know, like don't, because this is gonna get disconnected when we send it to an expert who doesn't know what anything in the work plan or the essay, and they cannot judge how good are you. And after that, we interview, last year we interviewed 35 people from each region, 6 people almost, to be able to choose one. And that would be the hardest decision when it comes, who is this one from the regions. We wish that we can offer more fellowship spots to everyone who is doing great work, and we don't want you to get discouraged if you don't get selected on the first time, or you don't get selected. It doesn't mean your work is not good enough or you're not doing enough. But the thing that make a difference, which that we have to decide at the end, how could we actually contribute to you? Could we see that, like, based on our experience, based on our expertise, can we really provide anything for this person? Does there's intersection between what we do and they do, that we be able to do a full partnership for a year, that we'll be able to actually support, advance their work, or they are doing a great work, perfect work, but actually our eye cannot actually support this person. Or sometimes we feel like you're literally overqualified. We feel that you have already reached certain level, you have already certain connections, and we prefer to support more people who are emerging leaders, as I said before, 5-7 years sometimes, like, but they're still not very much advanced in their leadership journey. So we try to give these voices a bit of more opportunity or priority. So that doesn't mean your work is not good, and that doesn't mean you have not a great job, but we think you have done super great, that you might not need the fellowship. This is where sometimes it's hard to make the decision. But at the end, what make it or break it is, do we feel from your application you understand what advocacy is? Do we feel from the application that you see how you really want to use the fellowship year for a year with RI? Do you understand what RI is about? If you are asking stuff that we don't do, then you have not read what RI does. If you are asking stuff that have to deal with direct delivery services, that means we cannot help, not because it's not important. It's amazing, and this job should be done, but we cannot help. And if we cannot help, you will not be selected just because we feel we cannot contribute enough. And also the interview is very important. Some people, we find their application impressive and we love what we see. But when we do the interview, it doesn't mean you have to be, I have to say it because some people would think, oh, because maybe I don't speak English well. It is not about like being super advanced in English. But sometimes what is written in the paper cannot be translated during the interview, that you feel this person is actually like the genuinity when you're dealing, like being genuine during the interview and actually being able to talk about your leadership and how you can use the fellowship during the interview and that you have prepared for that. It also make a very big difference. Some people you would interview like, yeah, this is great. Example, some people will be like, what is written in the application is actually not what the person is talking about. And this is also about using AI, that sometimes you write an application, but it's not what you do. And this is be very clear when we do the interview. I think I managed to cover some or most of the questions that we received when we did the registration form, but we will open the floor for more questions now and see what questions okay. I will try and go through the questions that we have received so far. But in general, I just wanted to give an overview about the application and the criteria. I'm going to be looking at some of the questions that you have sent now and try to answer most of them. There are specific focus areas we should consider for the advocacy plan? When you are writing your advocacy plan, you have to choose a specific advocacy area. Yes, you have to have a specific advocacy area. And I cannot like specify what areas you could be advocating for, because you could advocating for too many things, but what you are asking to advocate for, we should be able to have expertise on, to be able to help you advance it. So if you want to advocate for something that RI have never worked on, that RI doesn't have the expertise on, this would be an issue. But if you like, the areas are a lot, right? RI covers so many themes, from climate change to gender to IDPs. But for example, we don't have health program, we don't have education program. We need to work on that, we need to make that better, but keep this in mind. Is AI allowed only for publishing and editing? Yeah, I cannot I wouldn't say, oh, don't use AI at all, or I know that even Grammarly now have AI to edit. That's fine, but don't rely on AI that you just copy and paste the question and let them write the ideas for you. You are the person who lived the experience. It's your work, write your information. This is what will make you stand out. But when you're reading all the personality or the personal statement, I started knowing what is coming next, because it's exactly the same thing across different, like many of the application. Can you give an example of an advocacy plan from a previous cohort? Yes, for example, one of our advocates was Farhad Rotto. He was a Yazidi refugee living in France. He advocates for the Yazidi population. His advocacy target was to advocate for pathways or resettlement pathways for those Yazidis who lives in the camps in Greece, right? So he went on a partnership trip with one of our advocates to Greece, to the camps, met the people, learned about the situation, learned about the challenges and why they are not able to leave the camps in Greece, for example, and wrote a report based on what he saw in the camps with our advocate. Then his advocacy target, what he wants to advocate for the resettlement or pathways, let's say in France, Netherlands, and Germany. Then we had to go and work with him on getting this meeting with officials and policymakers in these 3 countries, and to go and present his work, that this is what is happening. We are suggesting you create 1, 2, 3. Does that mean they're gonna do it next day right away? No, but that doesn't mean he doesn't do it and he doesn't do his advocacy work, and he's still pushing until this moment for that, and we're trying to support him as much as possible. So in this situation, we saw how we had a specific advocacy target, which is like he knows what are the population he's talking about and where he wants to get them, and how he wants to advocate in terms of field work and research, and then direct engagement with policymakers. And then actually he did a campaign and a protest in some of these countries, but there is an advocacy tool specific that he was using during his fellowship. So this is how you think about it. Can we guarantee outcomes? We cannot guarantee outcomes of the advocacy always. Do my advocacy, yes. Your advocacy plan have to do something with your experience. You cannot be like yeah, this is a very important thing, actually, I should have mentioned before. Sometimes your personal statement, your experience so far is talking about something, and your advocacy plan is talking about something totally different. Like, there's two things here. Is it totally different in a way that you still be able, actually, from the experience you have showed above, you are still able to do that? Or it is a totally different venue that you wanna just examine if you can do it? This is a bit hard. If all your work is on, I have seen this, it would be all the work is on, let's say, in the personal statement and the two essays on education or labor market access. And suddenly when I read the work plan, it's about climate change adaptation. I'll be like, how? Right? Because if your experience is on something else, how could you be doing the work plan on something totally different? This is also something I have read such application before, so be careful. I submit my application, but I'm worried if I put my state. Is it a state as in which country you are? Because there's one thing to know, all the information that we receive in the application, it is not for use anything other than like outside of RI. This information will not be made public. We had some fellows who had some security issues. They were even in one country, not even the fellows in the same cohort knows where they are, and we didn't make it public where they are in anything on the website or work with them, or even within internal at RI, maybe one or two people know where this fellow is located. So we try as much as we can, if you have some security concerns, to support you on that. Yeah, so it is, we will not make it public if this would impact your security. I see questions on which areas of advocacy is the organization interested on. You see, when you fill your application and there is a list of themes, or there is for example, labor market access, there is power shifting, there is like there's different themes there, climate change. These are the things that we work on. If you go through our website and you say issues, you click on the link, you will see a drop down which state all the issues that we work on. And be careful to read them, so you don't actually put the application on a totally different thing that we don't work on. I see it's saying, do I need an employment to be employed during the application time? You don't have to be employed. We don't have to be employed, or you don't have to be unemployed. We don't place conditions of you have being employed or you're not employed. You are expected to work up to almost 5 to 7 hours a week with the fellowship. We need to see deliverables, that's for sure, during the fellowship, but you don't have to be employed. But also it's very important that you have time to do it, right? Because some people would be working 2 or 3 jobs, and it's great, and we know they need it, but they end up not having enough time to actually invest in the fellowship and work with RI. Qualification, is this only for emerging leaders? As I said, it is for leaders who have not been well established, that meaning like not 15 plus years old of experience. Is it for 5, 7 years experience? We still consider that. People who are 3 to 4 years experience, for example, or I don't want to say specific years, but it is we can tell when a person is overqualified and well established and might not need this fellowship compared to someone who have advocacy experience, who they have to show they have been doing the work, right? They have to show that they have already started this work, they have years of experience, they are trying to support advance the rights of their community, but that doesn't mean like they have to be seasoned. And like, as I said, 10 is, I don't want to say numbers, but like 15 plus, I can say it is advanced. And we think they are overqualified. I'm saying I'm a refugee in Kenya, but I don't have an organization that advocates. You don't have to have an organization that advocates, or you don't have to work for a refugee-led organization, but you have to have you have to have been working on advocacy related to refugees. Like, the fellowship should not be the first time you hear about advocacy or you do anything related to advocacy. You should have certain some people have been doing it on the side, some people have been doing it as a volunteer, some people have been doing it after all their work, but they are doing it in their personal capacity, but they are doing it in different forms. But that doesn't mean you actually have to have your own organization to be able to do it. On the travel. Okay. On the travel, you don't have to have a travel document, or you don't have to have travel paper to be able to apply. This has nothing to do with it, because as I said, you have to do it virtually from your country, and you are working within your community, so you don't have to travel. We don't even ask for refugee for like a documentation, but for sure we do if you are applying as a refugee and you are not a refugee, we will know. If you are applying as asylum seeker, we have intelligence and we can know if this person is actually from that, especially we have connections in the communities and we can know. But we don't have to provide us with like a travel document, a refugee travel document, and you don't need to have, because while you can travel through the fellowship and we can support you if you have papers to go attend some conferences, to go to other countries and meet other fellows, but that doesn't mean it's a requirement. Some of the fellows didn't have proper papers, have some travel restrictions, and they were not able to travel during the fellowship. And it is just something that they couldn't make the best out of it. And we totally understand. We are dealing with this fellowship is for people from displaced background, and it comes with all sorts of restrictions on travel. We totally understand that. So you don't have to have a document, but it's just you cannot travel. The question. I think I think we might have covered this, that we know that you have a person lived experience, you are a refugee somewhere, you cannot travel, you can stay wherever in the camp, in the Bangladesh refugee camp you are, but we cannot help get papers that would make you able to travel or to move if you don't have these papers in the first hand. Like, do you have, or do you need to have them to be able to qualify for the fellowship? Completely not. You can work on this fellowship wherever you are located and you don't have to leave. I see the questions on the Gazans now living in UK. I was studying here before October, or I graduate soon, go back to Gaza. I have not. I think most people in Gaza, they are already refugees originally, like even before they like they come. But if I was studying here, so it depends, like what is your, what are you, I think you would be considered. Yes, you would be considered, because you cannot go back to Gaza, and you have at certain point to apply for asylum, or you are now forcibly displaced in wherever you are because you cannot go back. So I think, yeah, you can go ahead and apply. What is your current status again? Someone is asking about, I'm currently finalizing my application and had a question about what is your current status section, asylum, refugee and internally displaced. I think we cannot go like, okay, I think if you are forcibly displaced, applied for asylum, or internally displaced, or you have been displaced before, but now you have another citizenship, whatever, you can apply. I don't think it would be easy to go through every single questions or every single status right now of like me living here and working here, but general rule of thumb, been displaced, or applied for asylum, or you cannot go back for a certain reason, you have experienced displacement, or even if you were former refugee, you can still apply. There is no option of other statuses. There is no option of other statuses because this is the eligible statuses. Maybe we can add others, but we would, if you have not experienced displacement, it would be, okay. Maybe I would have to think a little bit about that, because some people in Europe, they are like in other statuses other than refugees, or if you're forcibly displaced, you can apply. If you're to the TPS, if it is humanitarian paroles, that this is like a US thing. In Europe, is it humanitarian protection? There's different type of statuses, but at the end, it is you are forcibly displaced, so you will be qualified. But I will see if we can add other two statuses that would make sense. Thank you for the note. We will add others to the section. On country selection, I'm curious. The region would be, the region we are asking about is about the work you're doing. So if you're advocating for refugees, where? Are you advocating for refugees who are in East Africa, in a country in East Africa, or in a country in South Africa? You're advocating for refugees who are in Europe, maybe in two regions. So it is not about where you're located when it comes to the regions. The question, the question on regions, what are your advocacy targets, or where are the refugees that you do the advocacy for? So pay attention for that. If I'm here and my work is to advocate for refugees in Middle East, I live in the US, but I'm advocating for refugees in Middle East, then I choose the Middle East there. I don't choose the US. I hope that's clear. How should we use the funding when it comes to the funding and stipend? The funding, which I mentioned before, is 15K that goes on installments throughout the fellowship of 3 or 4 months. And it is for your personal use. We don't tell you how to use the funding. It's a stipend. It is the kind of like, since you are working with us for 7 hours a week, it's like we're paying you for like kind of honorarium for your time. So it is personal. I have seen in some projects where people put the plan and they think that 15K, they're gonna use it on a project. On the plan, this is not the case. You don't use the 15K on projects. During the fellowship, if you had to travel, if you have certain project that we can support you, we can cover this beside the 15K. The 15K is for your personal use and you use it how you want. Can refugees who don't have access to bank account apply? We know that in some countries, refugees might be very hard for them to get bank accounts due to their statuses. We understand that. But you have to be able to receive a stipend. In some cases, we have seen where a refugee directly don't have a bank account, but they may have a very trusted person or in their family, or I don't know, that have a bank account and they trust, they're gonna send them the money and they gonna give it to them, or an organization that can receive the money and give it to the person. It will be your decision on that. but it is not like a disqualifying item. So if you have access to bank account, even if through a different person, but sometimes it get a bit tricky when, like, if you don't trust that person gonna give you the money, don't do it, right? So you need to have access to bank account in any form, right? We can work on these details if we get selected later, but at the end you need to receive the money on a bank account. Is it yours? Is it someone else? It's another organization. It's more of like details we sort out later. Yeah, we answered these questions. That it could be under other someone's else name. And again, there is a question of the grant, the 15K grants should be used on related advocacy. No, the 15K grant is your personal, for your personal activity, your personal money for your time and commitment for working with RI. But for sure, you have to be actually showing that you're actually doing the work. We can take 2 more questions, I think, and we would be at the end of the time slotted for the info session. Let's see if there's any more question. If your advocacy requires funds to implement and execute. Okay. It depends. It very much depends. We don't run on unlimited budget, and I can say we don't have a lot of money. But if your advocacy that you are doing requires some form of money that is doable from our side, some form of money that can be paid, I don't know, I don't want to specify a number, but if it is within our budget, it is within that thing that we are able to do, we would not hesitate in supporting your advocacy activities. When the fellows travel to another country to attend a conference, they always are covered. If they are doing something within their country, activities that is related to the plan and our partnership, it will be covered. But if you're having a huge advocacy project that really needs a big amount of money that we cannot cover, we try to connect you with donors who might be interested in covering your work. We don't guarantee that. But if it is within our limit, within our budget, we do our best to cover. If it is not, and it's a big project, big advocacy goals, requires a lot of money, we try to connect you with resources. If it didn't work, then we have to be more creative with you, or you have to be more creative in raising more money to implement and execute. Okay, I think one more. Okay, one more and we can. Okay, great. Then we are at the end of our session. Hopefully we have managed to answer some of your questions. Again, the last thing I would say is, we know this fellowship could be important for a lot of people who have applied and will apply, and don't get discouraged if you don't get selected. That doesn't mean your work is not important. It just means we have a lot of tough decisions to make here. It means that, as I said, 1,000 application, you're choosing 6 people. For sure, there's a lot of people who would just not be selected, not that you're not doing good enough. We actually learn a lot when reading the application, and we disheartened when we see there's a lot of good candidates. We are hoping in the future that we can improve and we provide more services, we provide more spots, and we know that this is important for each and every one of you. Thank you for being here, and we're trying to do our best to support you in any way possible. And hopefully in the future, we might be able to start providing more of services for the people who applied but did not get selected. But we're working on that. We're still learning. Be patient with us. Usually last year, we have sent emails out to people who did not get selected. I'm not sure if everyone received it. Check your spam, but we are making sure also to inform people that if you get selected, you are informed. If you don't get selected, we are informed. We know that it's more professional for sure to communicate with the candidate. But if you didn't receive an email either or, believe me, it is purely technical. It is not something that we intentionally doing of like not informing you. You can always also, if you have a question, send and ask. Thank you. Thank you very much and for joining us, and have a great day.